Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Since Boise State Public Radio was founded, students have been an integral part of day-to-day operations. We're proud of those who contribute to what we do every day.
This is Jamie Geary, and I'm a news assistant at Boise State Public Radio. Working at the station has helped me jumpstart my career.
On March 4th and 5th, help us connect across campus and through our community. You can fund our student programs with your gift on Bronco Giving Day. Learn more and support at boisestatepublicradio.org.
You're listening to Idaho Matters from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudet. Today, we're continuing our Idaho 44 series with a visit to Idaho County. It's the largest county in the state, actually, home to Salmon, Clearwater, and Snake Rivers. And in 1882, 3 Benedictine sisters left their home in Switzerland for America's Pacific Northwest with one mission: to provide education to children in rural communities. That journey eventually brought them to Cottonwood, Idaho, where they established St. Gertrude's Monastery in 1908. The community has grown and evolved over its 120-year history, but its core mission has remained the same: listening and responding to community needs. That has included providing education and healthcare, promoting sustainable living, and hosting a retreat center that welcomed guests from near and far. Sister Janet Barnard, a leader at the Center for Benedictine Life, is joining us today to talk more about the monastery. Sister Janet, nice to have you with us.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So, for folks who may not be familiar, what does the Benedictine tradition center on, and how does that shape life at St. Gertrude's?
So Saint Benedict lived in the 6th century, and he, kind of out of response to the culture around him, wanted a place where people could live together, seek God, pray together, and meet the needs around them. And so we always say our main core values are hospitality, peacemaking, and simplicity. So those are the things that you would think of as Benedictines. And then the Benedictine motto is peace.
And so how would that then shape life at St. Gertrude's with what those core values are?
Well, for hospitality, that's one of the reasons why we have our Spirit Center, Retreat Center, and our inn is to welcome guests. And we welcome guests in our museum. And then we try to be hospitable to each other as well, to make room for God among us. Simplicity, with Benedictines, we don't vow poverty like the Franciscan sisters would. We talk about common ownership. So we hold all things in common and share them with people who need them. So that's, our look at simplicity, and how we can simply live so others can live. How we can live simply so others can simply live is kind of a catchphrase on simplicity. And for peacemaking, it's always been our desire to help communities live together in peace, for us to live together ourselves in peace, and then the communities that we serve.
My understanding is that the sisters arrived in Cottonwood in 1907, and it was at the invitation of John Uhlenkott. So can you talk to us about what was happening in Idaho County at that time that drew German Catholic families to that area?
Well, the Uhlenkott family had immigrated from Germany seeking a better life, and they had settled in the Midwest, Indiana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota. But the land was running out. There wasn't enough to do big farming. And they had just opened up in Idaho County land for settlement and for farming. And so John Uhlenkott came with his family, and he had several sons and several daughters. And his 2 of his daughters had joined our community when we were in Uniontown and Colton. And so when he heard we were looking for more space to become a little bit more self-sufficient, he offered us a piece of his homestead, and then helped us homestead our own section of land.
So it seems like these families, like the Wollacotts, really helped lay the foundation for the monastery in that region.
Certainly. And they also, in the Uhlencott family, there were three of John's daughters who had become sisters,
Mm.
two in our monastery and one in Minnesota. And then his granddaughters, we had five or six of his granddaughters in our community, and then three of his great granddaughters. So not only did they help us find this property and settle here and support us as we were growing, they gave us their daughters too.
And the Benedictine tradition has also valued the arts and spirituality, and you mentioned social justice. So, how do these commitments show up in the work that you do today at the monastery?
So we have 880 acres of forest land, and we have a sister who is the forest manager, and she works with a management company out of Moscow. And we've even been designated a forest in Idaho, small forest
Hmm.
owners. I'm not sure exactly the term. It's on our website. But so we manage that land for sustainability, to create habitat for the animals in our area, and to give us a place to walk and encounter nature, and also our retreatants and other people who join us here at the monastery.
And
We
you have one of our
have traditionally had a garden, and we grow as much of our own vegetables and fruit as we can. We have orchard.
and you also have one of Idaho's oldest museums at the monastery. Is that correct?
That's true. We had initially had academy in Colton, Washington, and when we came to Idaho, that academy stayed functional. But by 1930, we realized we couldn't really run two academies, so we closed that one. And Sister Alfreda was teaching at the academy in Colton, and she made a comment, something like, "There's enough stuff here to start a museum."
Mm.
And so they gave her an attic room in the academy here in Cottonwood. And then she later collected all kinds of artifacts about the history of this area and about science, because she was a science teacher. So we really
Mm.
started with a rock collection from the Smithsonian. That became the core of the museum. And that was in 1930 that that we officially started that collection. In 1980, we built a new building that's on our campus to house that, because the high school needed the space and didn't really have the space for us to house the museum anymore once it became a public high school. So it's an amazing museum, and it
Mhm.
really, our focus has been the history of the sisters and the surrounding area.
So my understanding is that the museum also includes Sister Alfreda's. She had a 2 volume anthology of Idaho County history.
Right, she did, and that's for sale at the museum, and on display there. And most of the artifacts she collected as she was doing her research are what make up the base of the museum
Mm.
collection. She also then
Is-
wrote a book on the Chinese in Idaho, and on one of
mhm.
Idaho County's most famous characters, Polly Bemis, who was a Chinese woman who lived on the Salmon River near Warren, Idaho.
Okay, so I understand that her stories, as you mentioned, in this anthology, she does have stories of polybemus, of Chinese immigrants, but she also wrote about poker games. I kind of love this. So, what do these accounts reveal about life in early Idaho County?
Well, her goal was to record the history. So she talked with the people who lived it, as much as she could. She traveled as much as she was able around the area. People came and shared things with her. It is a really good collection of the stories of the people who settled this area, kind of what their lives were like day to day.
So let's talk a little bit about current day and your retreat center in particular. Can you tell us a little bit about it? What is its purpose, and who is welcome to come and take part?
Well, we started in the like I think in the 1980s, sponsoring retreats where we would have people come and join us for retreat. And we were using other buildings on campus. And that continued
Hmm.
to grow. There was seemed to be a real need for people to come and have a time away to focus on their relationship with God and how that affected their whole life. And as that grew, we decided we needed a bigger space, a more focused space. So in 2005, we built Spirit Center. And we worked with a group of architects who tried to make that building fit into the surrounding spaces as aesthetically beautiful as possible. It's got lots of windows, lots of natural wood and slate and cork, in the building of it. We did add some solar panels to do the water heating, just tried to make it a building that reflected our
Mm.
values. Anyone is welcome to come to the Spirit Center. We offer probably one or two programs a month that we pick the topic and do the program, and one of our sisters or another a person who's connected with the monastery presents that information. Then we also host other groups. So we have church groups from Lewiston, Orofino, all around this region. Anyone could come, but those are the groups we see most often. And then they just use our space. They do their own program and use our space
Hmm.
and eat with us in our dining room.
So I know that some of your retreats that you offer are silent retreats, and in fact, you once hosted college students for 1 month, and you did ask them to leave their cell phones behind. So this wasn't exactly silent, but what did that teach you, but also them about, silence, getting away, that attention and maybe reconnection?
Well, so we weren't the ones who asked them to not have their cell phones. Their
Okay.
professor who put the program together did. But she's been a friend of the monasteries and made retreats here for years and wanted to bring students to experience that. So it was a January session of students from Whitworth College. They were amazed that they could be without their phones for a month and still feel connected to the world, and connected
Mm.
to each other, connected to
Hmm.
nature. Um, Most of them didn't want to leave. I mean, they knew that this was a, mountaintop experience and that they had to go home,
Yeah.
but it had become such a integral part of their daily life and their taking time to be alone with themselves and with God. They really appreciated that
Yeah.
time. And that's an experience we see with lots of people. So we have every year, we have two sessions of what we call Come to the Quiet. And those are 10-day retreats that are silent retreats. And then we'll
Mm.
do, there's another one they call Sip of Silence, that's just a shorter amount of time. And individuals can come on their own and they can be as quiet as they want. We don't have any TVs or radios or things like that at Spirit
Hmm.
Center. People can always bring their electronics if they want, but we don't have them there.
Yeah. Okay. So before I let you go, I have about 2 minutes left, and I want to ask you about Stormy because this is your community service cat. How did Stormy become a part of the monastery family?
Well, one of our sisters who was elderly in our assisted living facility had always wanted a cat. And our we don't have personal pets. So
Hmm.
it wasn't a normal process to get a cat. But she went to her doctor and said, I really need a therapy cat. And he wrote a prescription. So our prioress said, okay, this infirmary, our sun porch floor, can have
Hmm.
a cat, and you can help take care of it. So I was director of the care center at the time, and I thought in order to give the cat some cred, I went through Pet Partners, which is an organization that registers therapy animals. I did an online
Hmm.
training, and then he had to go through a examination through Pet Partners, and there was a person in Moscow at the time who could do that evaluation, and he passed. So he's a registered therapy animal. And
I love that so much.
the sister who he first came into our life for has died. And every time one of his sisters dies, he kind of chooses another one to be his special
Mm.
companion during her last years. So he's been with us 12 years,
Oh my
and it's been
gosh.
a really neat
Wow.
experience.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. We've been speaking with Sister Janet Barnard, a leader at the Center for Benedictine Life at St. Gertrude's Monastery, about their mission and community from Idaho County as part of our Idaho 44 project, where we're taking you to each one of Idaho's counties. And we want to thank our volunteer, Kat Serio, for her help with our look at Idaho County. And that'll do it for this episode of Idaho Matters. Thanks so much for listening. And just a reminder, you can find all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, it's Terry Gross, host of Fresh Air. Hey, take a break from the 24-hour news cycle with us and listen to long-form interviews with your favorite authors, actors, filmmakers, comedians, and musicians, the people making the art that nourishes us and speaks to our times. So listen to the Fresh Air podcast from NPR and WHYY.